I have several questions, but I just want y'all to talk about the process and how it all came together from the inception to now. Here next week, y'all are going to be releasing your debut album.
Oh man, like you said, 5-6 years. I think we started recording January of 2016, and I mean prior to that, we were all just kind of jamming. It was literally just kind of an excuse for us to all hang out. Like, if we have to have band practice, then at least all 5 of us can be in the same place, and that's what it started as. Total, like, just a hobby, have some fun, and it just started to take shape more and more, and we all still have very busy lives in our personal lives. So, I mean, that's why, hence taking 5 years to record a record, but mostly thanks to this guy. He likes to take his time.
Yeah, it's for me, like the process with the vocals on the record. I mean, it started as an EP, and we got through that trudgingly. I was working like 14 hours a day, showing up to the studio at like 10 at night, recording until like, I don't know, 1 in the morning, some nights 2 in the morning.
Or sometimes 20 minutes.
Or 20 minutes, depending on how rough the day was.
That's the 5 years.
So, yeah, so we were just like, and we did it with our buddy Roger. So we finished the EP, and then we're like, let's just turn it into a full length, and then we tacked on another 2 or 3 years, so.
I've been like filming this whole process, and I was combing through footage that we were considering like putting into a music video, and we are like noticeably different looking. Like we were like concerned that like it was like he doesn't have his throat tattooed in half of it. Like there's things we just look noticeably different. Like it's been so long that we've actually like changed, and like it's pretty funny. So I'm sure some of that will surface someday, but that was just like a funny thing when I started going through it. I was like, we look younger. We've literally aged throughout this process.
It's funny that you say that. If you've ever seen the movie Lawrence of Arabia, I remember like watching a documentary about that movie, and there is a scene where Peter O'Toole starts at like the big stop at the staircase and like walks all the way down. Right in the movie, it's probably a grand total of like 30 seconds or something like that. But in shooting, they were like, when Peter O'Toole is at the top of the stairs, he is a year older when he was at the bottom of the stairs, because it took that long for everything to get in. Sometimes that's just what it takes, right? And everybody still knows Lawrence to Arabia this day. Like sometimes when you're, getting all that stuff together, that makes things for the benefit of the album. And I actually want to touch on something for that. But Corey, I wanted you to jump in first with a question of your own.
Oh, no, it just, the gathering of all the footage it popped into my head. What about like a making of the album type documentary? People love that kind of behind the scenes stuff, and that's something I would love to see. Would that ever be in the works for you guys with all of that footage that you've gathered over the years? Or is it just not that kind of footage?
It's probably a me question, but I would say that I have quite a bit. It would probably take me sitting down and like doing interviews. I don't know, perhaps like someday maybe.
Or something we could put into like a music video that's of studio footage.
Yeah.
That's probably more how that would end up coming out, as like maybe post album we'll put something together that kind of shows the process of it, and there's some good.
We're all pretty creative people, so we come up with a lot of different and interesting ways to kind of like create output for this band. So I'm certain that someday we will strike an idea that will all like kind of click into place for it. So,
almost like a time-lapse music video would be cool, just watching you guys change throughout the years
while
you're working on this album. Like,
it's very dramatic.
Dramatically, and changes color and all sorts of
If only we would have known that it was going to take 5 years, and we could shoot that the whole time.
That's true.
So you said this kind of developed as an EP first, and then you guys just decided to turn it into a full length and add some stuff to it and everything like that. One of the things that struck me most about the album was just the tight run length of it, right? 10 songs, I think 30 minutes on the dot, give or take, something like that. And it goes from start to finish. There's just no filler on there. Like everything has its place. Did you find that challenging? Like, was there a lot of fat to kind of like to cut or anything like that? Or were you like, oh no, like it took us 5 years just to get 30 minutes. We didn't even want to add anymore.
No, the record Never Ending was very intentional. One of my favorite like overall records is Painted Black's New Lexicon, and that album never stops. Manchester Orchestra did the same thing. Like there's something going on between every song, and the pacing makes it so fucking cool. And so that was like very deliberate when we were putting this record together. Like we didn't want it to stop from start to finish. We wanted there to be dynamic. We wanted to have, you know, highs and lows and kind of take people so it didn't get stale or stagnant. But the stringing of the album together was super deliberate. And as far as like on the songwriting end, I don't feel like we trimmed a lot of fat for it. I mean, we definitely got kind of obsessive and like maybe a little over the top on the obsession and like getting it exactly where we wanted it. But I think the end product was worth it. And it's something that we're all happy to put our name on.
There's not a dead song, is there?
Every piece of like everything that's ever been written for Born Pain is on that record.
Yeah.
There's no songs that were cut, no B-sides, no anything. That's it.
There's definitely
Congrats,
songs that
guys.
changed dramatically like through the process of it. But yeah,
I think a lot of that is Aaron though.
Yeah,
He's super meticulous songwriter. Like,
obsessive in a good way.
He's the dad. He keeps us all like, you know, otherwise we just get all over the place.
And so with it taking as long as you said it did, you said things have changed throughout the years. Was it hard to fit songs that you wrote earlier in the process versus later in the process, or was it a pretty fluid time for you guys?
I feel like the songs themselves have like gone through different iterations of like I've been tired of them, and then we do something else with it, or we change something up, and then it feels new. And then just completing the record and actually getting it mixed and finalized gave me a new wave of like being into it again. And then now actually getting to release, because I mean we finished mixing like a year ago. So now that it's coming out, it's kind of revitalized it again for me, at least personally. But it is odd. Like, you know, I have like on my phone, it shows up like, you know, what you were doing on this day a couple years ago and stuff like that. But it'll be a video of me recording a riff, and it's from like 2015 that is now a song on this record. So it's, when I see those, it's like, wow. I mean, I guess it's a good thing that I don't hate it. So that's good. I mean, I still, I can listen to every song and I'm stoked on it. And I mean, I wrote most of it, and a lot of those riffs have sat around for a long time. So I'm glad I'm still stoked on it.
Yeah. And the tricky thing too is like not pursuing new songs, right? So like that's like the biggest thing is like I think everybody wants to start writing new songs because we've had these songs for so long. But
I think that's a label fear.
It's definitely a label fear.
You will talk to Rick at Good Fight, and I'll just be like, for the next record, and then I like catch myself like, you know what?
We mess with him like pretty regularly.
Really
I'm pretty
hard.
certain we told him we started working on a new EP.
We did,
and the record hadn't even like been announced yet. And he was,
I think that's a label pet.
yeah.
Sorry, Rick.
It was like the one thing he asked us. Please don't do this.
Amazing. Yeah. And so speaking of that, I know that the subject matter in the album dives into some like really heavy topics sometimes, you know, addiction, loss, depression, suicide attempts from friends and things like that. Previously, were you all either comfortable or used to writing such like personal lyrics and things like that? Or is that something that just kind of developed? And I do have a follow-up question once you guys are done with that one.
I think I had definitely like I'd been in a band prior that toured a little bit, and it's just kind of my lyrical style. Like it's, to me, I'm just writing about the shit that's going on in my life, and that's kind of what made the span of this record so weird, because it was such a weird time in my life, you know. And I think it's important to write about shit that you actually care about, and I think that people will respond to that when you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you know, where you're like maybe exposing more than you would normally in like an everyday conversation, but you're being like, you know, sort of transparently honest about the situation. And not only was it sort of therapeutic for me to kind of work some of that stuff out in the studio and during the writing process, but I think that a lot of the content there is super relatable for people. And, you know, I don't know anyone that's not touched by some of these issues. You know, I don't know a single person that's managed to get through, and it's a weird time, you know? So I think, I think it's always been that way, you know?
I think that's like your strength as a songwriter, is that the lyrics that you're writing, because I know, because I'm close to them, they're hyper specific to certain situations, but the way that you write them, I think they're sort of more relevant to anyone who's experienced something like that. You know what I mean? They can be taken at both values, I think.
I think that's the purpose, right? I mean, if we're looking at aggressive music, you're like, oh, it's like heavy and crazy, but we wanted to write something that like had, some connection and some deeper meaning. And all of my favorite bands growing up, they're like these crazy, aggressive, like hard ass bands, but they're writing about love and like breakups and shit like that. And it's weird, but it's something I've always really appreciated about aggressive music that I think gets overlooked by like your like kind of average.
The other cool thing about it taking 5 years is that if we would have finished the whole record or even just that EP in the first year or so, I mean, half the songs on the record wouldn't exist because he wouldn't be able to write about them. Mm-hmm. So I mean, a lot of that stuff was in real time, like being like, we had half the record done, and a lot of stuff, went down in his life that then he worked out into songs. So it's kind of cool to think that if it didn't take us that long, then we'd have completely different lyrics.
Yeah. And that actually touches perfectly on the follow-up question that I was going to ask, because I've been doing some reading here and there during the past year and a half, or during the past pandemic. I mean, we're losing time over here with how long it's been and everything like that. And one of the things that I've read and noticed is that in times of very stressful situations, or when people are dealing with traumatic events or anything like that, there is a tendency to regress a little bit. And what I mean by that is that you go back to like a form of comfort or something like that. So for instance, especially early last year, I was like diving into heavy metal as much as I was when I was in high school, right? Because that was like my comfort place. And I just remember like, when I was a kid, I would shutter myself away in my room for a couple hours just to deal with everything that was going on and to do that. So I guess my question is, would you agree or disagree that kind of shaped the way that you did your writing and your riffs and your song structures? Because there is a little bit of a nostalgia element to this music, right? Where it's and you guys even say it in your press releases, as far as like that that 90s 2000s, like really like a hardcore metalcore type of sound. Is that something that you think subconsciously may have played a part?
I'm not so sure. Like, I mean, when we originally talked about this band, it was kind of always our intention. I mean, it definitely changed a little bit over time as the riff started to develop, but like I remember having conversations with Aaron like years and years ago, like we should start a End Note era HopeCon like sounding band, or we should listen to a shitload of Turmoil and then write a record, and so I think it was more like, I guess, intentional, in that was really what we were listening to and spinning. I'm not sure that it was like, I don't know. I mean,
it was just time and place. Like that's, I was personally like, I mean, I write most of our riffs and stuff, and I just happened to be going through a resurgence of just only wanting to listen to that kind of stuff, because it had been a couple of years since, like, I mean, I'd always listened to, the standouts here and there, but I just was really feeling like that's what I wanted to do, and then started writing riffs, and then that's just happened to be the time that we started all jamming together, so that just kind of pushed the direction, and we just, thankfully didn't run out of inspiration.
That's great. Corey, do you have anything else for Foreign Pain?
Well, in dealing with all of these heavy topics, I know that this has come up with a few other bands where the pandemic and the isolation kind of forced people to deal with things that they hadn't really been dealing with, or that they hadn't really fully processed because they had nothing else to do. So I know you said you wrote a lot of these in real time, but were there any moments that you revisited that brought up, old pains or old wounds or anything that you then channeled into your music at a later date?
I mean, one of the situations that I wrote about was kind of like reoccurring. Like it was not something that just happened one time and then that was it. It was something that was continually a theme through like the writing of the record. And we actually put together a couple like lyric explanation videos or whatever. Oh, nice. And those are actually all coming out
a week leading up to the release.
Yeah, every next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, breaking down some of the songs that were like, I would definitely say the hardest hitting, the ones I had the most trouble writing. And, we just got into a room and, queued up the song, and then I just talked about it for, 5-10 minutes. And it was pretty uncomfortable, and I remember like afterwards kind of talking to the dudes and be like, did I say too much? Like, they're very personal topics that are like pretty tough to chop up, and you know, again, it's just something that was ongoing through the writing process of the record, and this record really helped me kind of like sort that out, you know.
Aaron actually reworked the 3 songs we did those little mini docs for. So there's like a whole different version of like what's going on. It'll make sense when you see it.
Yeah, essentially, like you know, in like heavy music and hardcore and stuff, lyrical content is important, at least for, you know, in our experience growing up. And I think it's awesome when bands go out of the way to try to get like their message out. And a lot of times that's just, you know, having a singer sit down on a chair, throw a camera on them, and just have them talk about it for a minute. And we just wanted to try to do something a little more than that, which is what the end result of these videos are going to be. Of Doyle's in the videos, but not in the capacity of sitting in a chair and just talking. You just hear him speaking about the voice over a bunch of awesome footage that Shawn put together. And I kind of scored the music underneath, and it has like a cool, like cinematic and like dramatic feel to it that I think is very fitting to some of the pretty deep, you know, topics that Doyle's talking about. But we're really stoked to get those out. Yeah.
And my favorite thing is that we all listen to in like a huge plane of music. You know what I mean? Like we all like so many different things. So we're not afraid to do like a weird ambient thing or to do some, you know, like we don't have hangups about like having to meet some sort of criteria because we're a heavy band. Like we really don't care. Like we did these doc things. They're not going to sound like the record. Like they're cool. They're awesome. They're just different. You know what I mean? Like and
they're not genre specific.
No, they're not genre specific. They're awesome. Like they're super cool, but they're super different. And
you would watch them and have no fucking idea if that was like a hardcore band or like someone that sounds
which was
like
kind of the point.
Elegant. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. So yeah, if you're interested, they'll be up next week.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Let us know. We can probably push that on these channels and whatnot for all that stuff. Because like I said, like I know like the standout track for me on the album was I Thought It Was Me. You know, which I think, you know, makes a lot of sense given just the weight of that song and everything like that. So I really do appreciate you guys, you know, wanting to get in and like sit down and have those uncomfortable conversations and dig into all of that, especially because like you said, right, it's just music, regardless of genre or anything like that, should be important to not only the people that are listening to it, but the people that are writing it. So yeah, thank you guys for doing that.
Thanks. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's creating this really cool, like holistically cathartic experience because you have all of these very personal things that people can identify with. And then you couple it with the music like in Nell that you just want to go into the pit and lose your shit. And so, I mean, you're creating this whole experience that's just an outlet, and it doesn't really matter where the people are coming from or what they identify with. They can just dive in, and it's awesome.
That's like all the heavy bands that I grew up listening to, those are the bands I was connected with the most. Like if I care about what they're singing about, those are the lyrics that stick in my head. Like those are the ones I want to like, you know, jump off a stage and sing along to. And that's really what we're, you know.
I mean, another Iowa band like Modern Life is War is a massive influence on both Doyle and I specifically because we literally grew up watching those guys. And it's one of those bands that you can go absolutely nuts for, but also you can like have a moment in your car when you're listening to it because it's so specific, especially where we're from. Like there are just really specific songs on those records that like they're just deeply personal because of where we're from. We just identify immediately with what they're talking. You know what I mean? And so I think that we as a band kind of identified with that a little bit, and the ability to like kind of try and check both boxes, if that makes sense.
Just try to get as many layers as we can get in there.
Yeah, and I think you guys succeeded. Last thing that I'll say is that especially when the album starts, it's just, you know, when you're at the beach and you just get like knocked over by a big ass wave, like I get that feeling when the album starts and all the way through. It's just like a wall of sound pummeling the listener, which I mean, I dig. That's why I like heavy music and everything like that.
Tone zone, dude. Right?
Yeah, I mean, once people have the full album, they'll actually realize that the record ends that way too. Kind of sends off and then comes back.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny. I had, so I was going to say the last thing, but I actually had this, well, I guess the website for like the pre-listen and stuff like that y'all sent us loops, and I didn't realize it because that sound that starts at the beginning also ends the album. And so I didn't realize, like, oh, wait a second. So nice touch.
It's a little Easter egg. So if
Yeah.
you make it all the way through, then you'll just put it on repeat. Let it run.
Amazing. Corey, do you have anything else for our friends in Foreign Pain?
One question that I'm going to ask in honor of a friend of mine who is watching: what is your favorite dinosaur?
Wow. Velociraptor. They're pissed and smart.
Mhm.
I was gonna say
Excellent
that.
choice.
I was gonna say that because they're kind of like chickens. They freak me out.
Plus, the scene in Jurassic Park with Velociraptors is like the coolest scene of all time. Like
Yeah.
when they're in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
that one
I don't
and
know.
the clever girl scene when she
Yeah.
just like
Oh,
pops
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Classic. I guess I don't know what it is, but the one that spits like is that
I'm not sure that's real. I have no
is
idea.
it real? The
It
one
is
that's
real.
like-
Oh, I have no idea.
It's-
That
Really
one.
one?
That
It's
Dionysus.
called
That one's
Dilophosaurus.
Dilophosaurus.
that-
Sorry. Nope.
that thing
Yep,
is
you're right.
Yeah,
super
that thing's
fucking
mean.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it, or a T-Rex, and then Velociraptor would be third.
Excellent choices all around.
Amazing. We had Andrew Doyle, Shawn Skadburg, and Aaron Brooks from Foreign Pain. My friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Their debut album, Death of Divinity, is going to be out next week, next Friday, September 3rd. C-Spoon has a pre-order link for that in the chat, so get on it. I promise you it is worth your time. If you like Nell, you will like the album. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for
Sure,
having us.
thanks for
so
having
much.
us.
Yeah, no problem. And you guys enjoy your week, and congrats on the album.
Thank you.
Thank you.